What's up, everybody? Welcome to the PickSix podcast, CBS Sports daily NFL podcast. I'm Will Brinson. I'm your host. It is Thursday, July the 1st, and we're going to do some cornerback rankings jammed all up in your feed. Tons of top 10 rankings from various positions around the NFL. If you're watching on YouTube, like the video, hit the like button and tell us your top cornerbacks. Joining us now to talk cornerbacks, an expert in cornerback coverage, a host, or the host, excuse me, of all things covered. Do you guys co-host, B-Mac?
I think so. You know what I mean? I think that's the good part about having a team, a good team. You know, anybody can be the lead singer at any given time.
That's true. Yeah, you can jump in. I mean, it's all things covered with Patrick Peterson and Bryant McFadden. Your cuz, Pat P, now with the Minnesota Vikings, still in the NFL. You have a Pat P jersey over your shoulder, as well as two PMAC jerseys and two Super Bowl trophies. I would say, one, the podcast is awesome. And what amazes me is that you can – I was watching. I'm trying to think. Oh, there's the Teddy Bridgewater stuff. You guys had Teddy B on, and he set flames to Matt Rule and the Carolina Panthers. But it was ESPN, NFL Network. They were citing all things covered, which you freaking love to see. That's what you want. Is that like Sports Center saying Teddy Bridgewater said on all things covered, the All Things Covered podcast. That's the dream, right?
No question. And we've been fortunate enough to really be able to provide some type of national headlines, not on purpose, because we never, target a guest to try to get headline type of information. But, just having a casual general conversation, sometimes they say things that they want to get off their chest. And we just continue to, just get more from that story. You know what I mean? In a friendly way, you know what I mean? Similar to what the discussions you may have in a barbershop or something.
That's what I was going to say. Like Tom Brady does you want to keep that MFer in the barbershop thing. Like that's the whole, and that's what makes the podcast so good, is that you and Pat P have this very, like you guys know each other well, and you have this very low key vibe where even, when you're talking to somebody over Skype or Zoom or whatever it is, that they feel comfortable enough not to let their guard down. It's not that they're going to say how they feel,
no question,
without feeling like they're in an interview. And that's what you want in a podcast. You don't want a rigid podcast. Let's see, you had Xavier McKinney last week.
Yeah. New York Giants starting safety.
Yeah.
Yep. Alabama Crimson Tide player, former player.
And coming up, CBS's, because he's not really CBS Sports, CBS's own James Brown.
Yes, sir.
What kind of stuff can we expect from JB on the podcast? If people,
he's the ultimate professional. We tapped in to his early days, playing basketball. A lot of people don't know that he was a big time hooper. He actually had an opportunity in the NBA. I won't reveal what team. You got to check out the interview to listen to what team he tried out for and actually, got on the court with. But he's been doing a lot of things, of course, with CBS, one of the more respectable personalities at the company. He's doing some other things, too, that he revealed on the show. And he's also involved in Major League Baseball, to say the least. That's what you call a tease.
Spicy. That's a professional tease, B-Mac. And also, what did Xavier McKinney hates the Cowboys, huh?
He hates the Cowboys, no question. I didn't know this. He actually revealed on the show. He thought the Cowboys were going to draft him, I think, with the 16th, 17th pick, whatever pick they had. But of course, they got CD Lamb. Yeah. They worked out fine. But yeah, he feels some type of way with the Cowboys, and he talked about his first interception happened the final week of the season against the Dallas Cowboys.
Kick him out of the playoffs.
Yep.
That's something to watch, because this is how this works. Like Pete Prisco always says this. This is one of the dumbest things I think Pete says. He's like, guys don't get. And Pete says a lot of dumb things. He's like, guys don't get more motivated by. I'm like, you're not.
That's a bold-faced lie,
right? Like,
yes,
Xavier McKinney is gonna. He's like, if you need motivation to get hyped up, then it's like, what are you talking about? Of course you want motivation.
It's more personal. It's personal. He stated he felt some type of way because he actually thought, he'll be a Cowboy. They didn't. Played against them, balled out. And I think, I don't want to assume, but I kind of hit on the fact that motivation will always stay with him anytime he's lined up on the football field specifically. But when they're playing against the Cowboys as well, that's going to be a big time matchup for him, because he felt like, you guys should have drafted me. You didn't. So I got to try to make you pay.
And so two times a year, he's not that he's going to try harder. Everybody's trying hard, but he's going to get, like you say, he's going to feel some sort of way. There's going to be a little extra motivational, extra juice rolling through the body.
Yes, sir.
And you see that, look, cornerback rivalries, cornerback wide receiver matchups. We see this all the time. Let's look at some cornerbacks who might have some, maybe we'll find out if some of them have bitter rivalries towards other guys, but we'll start off with number 10, your top 10 cornerbacks. Oh, actually, before we get there, who are the toughest names for you to leave off this list out of your top?
Oh, toughest names for me to leave off. And I did my rankings based on how well they played last year, getting ready for this upcoming season, right? Sure. So one of the toughest names I had to leave off is Marshawn Lattimore. Played good football, but didn't really play the type of football we've seen throughout his early professional career in New Orleans. Had a good year, but for him, it was a down year, to say the least. He didn't lead his team in PBUs, didn't lead his team in interceptions, but he played good football. But when you think about Marshawn Lattimore, you think about the top tier type players at that position, because he jumped in the league and he's been able to display that skill set, but didn't necessarily consistently display that skill set. So I left him off. I left Darius Williams off as well, the number 2 corner for the Rams. I mean, he receives a lot of attention.
The other corner for the Rams, right?
The other guy, right?
Yeah.
Jalen Ramsey is the number 1 guy, but Darius has been playing real good football, an unheralded star in that defensive backfield. But I left him off as well. You know what I mean? So you can't make everybody happy. William Jackson, Byron Jones, heck, I even had to leave Pat P off as well. So it's a very, very sticky list. But when I look at my top 10 guys, Will, I'm okay with it. I think I did a pretty good job based on how well these players played last year. Like I said, it's more about what they did last year, getting ready for this upcoming season.
And look, credit to you as a professional, because, I think I'm not going to name any names, Derek Carr or David Carr, but, sometimes people will put their family members ahead of business. You're not about that. You're here for a top 10.
You got to be unbiased.
Right. Like Pat P was not, Pat P played like a top 10 cornerback last year. He'd probably still be on the Cardinals. Now, did he vault back up on the list? Absolutely. Minnesota's a cornerback factory, but I think you did the right thing by not, you could have snuck Pat P on there, and I would have called you out, but you're too professional.
I gotta be unbiased here. I gotta be unbiased and going off the eye test. The 10 guys that I have on that we will read off in a few, they're all deserving, but you can't make everybody happy when you only got 10 spots.
That's right. J.C. Jackson, your 10th ranked cornerback. Is it a breakout year last year? It feels like yeah, right. It's qualifies as a breakout year, right?
Man, JC, yes, yeah. When you get 9 picks, it's breakout something, right? You get 9 picks, it's breakout something. I think JC went to Maryland, if I'm not mistaken. The reason why I had JC in my top 10 is this: he always finds the football. That's just who he is as a player. So think about this:
interceptions in 3 years.
17, yes. And think about this, Will. In 3 years, he's never been a consistent starter.
Yep.
You know what I mean? He played more of a starter. He had more of a starter role last year because of injuries in the secondary, but he's never been a consistent starter. You think at the cornerback position for the Patriots, was McCourty, Gilmore, and then the other guy who is J.C. Jackson. But 9 picks last year, 14 PBUs, as you stated, in 3 years, not being a consistent starter, 17 books. I mean, he finds the football. He is like a magnet on a refrigerator. Anytime the football is around, he's sticking on that football. And he's done so well in doing that. And anytime you can create turnovers, getting interceptions for a defensive back, cornerback, is the same as a pass rusher getting sacks. If you get sacks, you're going to open a lot of eyes. That's how you win ball games. If you get interceptions, the same can be said for you being able to open eyes. And I couldn't leave JC off with 9 picks. I couldn't.
Well, and that's an interesting point too. And it's sort of, look, part of the problem is that there are, you played cornerback. You can watch film. You watch film your entire career. You can watch film and say, all right, like this guy's doing this and this, and we can all look at it and know that. But I guess my point is that it is like sacks and picks. That's going to move you up the list of people, like when the average fan is looking at stuff and say, oh, this guy's 9 picks. He's clearly very good. 17 picks in 3 years. Yes. That's going to move you up. It's going to get you paid. And it's going to get you involved in award stuff. And that's why he is on the list. Sometimes it benefits you to play across from a guy like Steph Gilmore or across from a guy like Jalen Ramsey, because you're going to get more opportunities, even though opportunities can oftentimes be bad. For JC Jackson, it's led to tons of picks. At number 9, Denzel Ward of the Cleveland Browns.
Feisty player. Yeah, I love his game. The one knock on Denzel is durability. Just staying in the lineup. He only played in 12 ball games, but he gave you 18 PBUs. This is a guy that gets his hands on the football. 18 PBUs, had 2 interceptions. Just imagine if he was able to play an extra 4 ball games. Clearly would have had over 20 PBUs. He's the ultimate number 1 corner in the secondary. He does not mind following opposing teams' best wide receivers, and he tackles well. He goes and he competes, but just not giving a full season for him would have been super important. But yet and still, I could not have Denzel in the top 10. So he made my top 10. He's number 9. Easily could be higher, but because of the injuries, only played 12 ball games. That kind of knocked him a little bit. But he's one of the more talented guys in the cornerback position throughout the National Football League.
Well, and he's never played more than 13 games in his career, which is that's a problem. I mean, is it Parcells who said the best availability, or the best ability is availability, right?
No question.
You got to be able to play. I mean, that's 4 games without your top cornerback, and that's why they went out and invested in the secondary. They drafted Greedy Williams last year. That they want Greedy to be a complementary piece to Denzel Ward. And I'm not saying, I mean, look, Denzel Ward has just turned 24. He's still really young,
super young,
flash crazy talent. But I agree with you. The injuries are a concern. Is it possible he's too aggressive for his size, and that sort of contributes to the injuries, or do you think it's sort of fluke stuff?
He throws his body around, which I love. He plays with a reckless nature sometimes. He just gotta take care of his body. Got to stay in the weight room. For a guy who might not be as big as some of the other guys we will highlight, you got to stay in the weight room. You got to make sure your shoulders are together. Stay on that shoulder press machine. You make sure your bench press is where it needs to be. Your squat game, everything. Because when you're throwing your body around into these big backs, tight ends, and wide receivers throughout a 17-week season, it's going to take a toll on you. So you want to make sure you build your body up as much as possible to be able to handle that type of damage.
No doubt about it. Checking in at number 8, the big free agent signing for Dave. Ironically, so Dave Gettleman, the Giants general manager, drafted James Bradberry to replace
Josh Norman.
Thank you. How did I blank on Josh Norman's name?
Yep.
He didn't want to pay. Josh Norman pissed him off. He rescinded the franchise tag. He let Norman walk. He signs with Washington. And to replace him, he drafts James Bradberry, claiming he doesn't pay cornerbacks and you don't want to give cornerbacks a bunch of money. And then as soon as James Bradberry becomes a free agent, he gives James Bradberry a bunch of money. But it was a good signing.
Great signing.
Bradberry was dynamic for the Giants last year, right?
Huge. He was huge for the Giants last year. The thing I love about James Bradberry, he didn't mind following opposing offense's number 1 wide receiver. He took that challenge personally, and he played well. I mean, he's number 8 on my list, 18 PBUs, 3 interceptions, a defense that definitely improved in the secondary, and he played a big part in their improvement in totality. He's a big body corner, around 6'1", over 200 pounds. He has fluid hips, good feet. He locates the football, and he competes, and he does it quietly. Doesn't say one thing. And I think if he was a little more vocal, if he was a little more, social media savvy, people will be talking more about him, in my opinion. But people do not talk enough about James Bradberry based on how well he played last year. Like I said, man, 3 interceptions, 8 PPUs, doing it following elite wide receivers anytime they faced off against a top tier guy.
Yeah. And that the Giants needed that. They needed an influx. And I don't know if it's because of, do you think that was it scheme that caused him to break out with the Giants? Because this is pretty rare where you're a good cornerback for a team for 4 years, and he was a good cornerback for Carolina, but he wasn't a top 10 cornerback. Moves up and gets to the Giants, and all of a sudden he just becomes, a Pro Bowler, a top 10 cornerback in the league. I mean, was it partially Patrick Graham's scheme? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the scheme played a big part. Anytime you have a corner that's making a transition to another organization, you want to utilize him the right way. That's the thing. If you're able to utilize him the right way, you will get the best he has to offer. And we see that all the time. We'll think about some of these talented draft prospects that we see play outstanding football collegiately, go to the NFL, and they look like a shelf of themselves. You know what I mean? Don't look like the player that we saw on Saturdays, because they're not being utilized the right way. You know what I mean? So it's not about the talent all the time. Talent is important. But if you got a guy who might not have the most talent, and you put him in the right system, you can get quality sound production from that said player. And that's what we saw from James Bradbury. And I can't wait to see what he has in store in year 2 for the New York Football Giants.
Especially we don't have to deal with a shortened offseason. At number 7, friend of the podcast, Marcus Peters. That's right, Marcus Peters. He's been on the PickSix podcast. You're only a friend of the podcast if you come on the podcast. Marcus Peters came on, and this is bad. I'm telling on myself here, BMAC, but I was asking him, I was like, oh yeah, so like UW is kind of who's the coach now at Washington? It's the old DB's coach. I'll look up a second. But he I was like, I was like, they're cranking out these I was like, they've been cranking out the Jimmy Lake. I was like, they've been cranking out all these cornerbacks. Like Jimmy Lake's turned into Washington a cornerback U factory. I've forgotten that he may have attacked Jimmy Lake when he was in college. Maybe he's like, I don't want to talk about that. I was like, oh, I forgot. I'm sorry. Anyway, Marcus Peters, an absolute ball hawk. Maybe not the best year for him in 2020. First full season with the Ravens was ridiculous when he got to Baltimore. Maybe I guess it was sort of a bit of a letdown in 2020 versus the second half of 2019 when he played with the Ravens.
But listen, one thing about Marcus Peters, he will guarantee at least 3 interceptions.
He has 31 picks.
Yes. He's going to get you, worst case scenario, three books.
Yeah.
He just finds the football. And out of those 3 interceptions, one probably will go back to the house for a touchdown.
Dude, he averages per year 136 interception return yards.
Wow.
He's led the league in return yards 3 times. He's had 280 his rookie year, 210 in 2019. Last year was his worst season. He only had 17.
But still gave you 4 interceptions.
For sure.
You know what I mean? The football, whenever he's playing, and it's almost like when you watch Marcus Peters play, he's so ball savvy, especially when he's playing off technique. If you throw the football to his side, you hold your breath because you're like, oh, he might get it. Every time. I don't care who they're playing against. He just has that knack about him that he's always around the football. And I had to have him in my top 10. He's number 7 because of his ability to consistently get his hands on footballs.
He's a gambler, and I love it.
Oh, no question. He should be playing in Vegas because he loves to gamble.
I mean, it does, and sometimes it can burn you a little bit. But I think go back to like landing spot and usage. The team that uses him. Not saying you want to shade help to his side, but you do know that he is going to try and jump the route, try and get that ball, and sometimes that can burn you. You just don't want it to happen on like a go route where he jumps it early and you get torched for a touchdown.
One thing I can say about Marcus Peters, he's been playing more disciplined football in a Ravens uniform. It seems like he's communicating more and he's taking calculated chances, not reckless chances. And because of that, he's been where he needs to be more than none. So yeah, he's number 7 on my list, man. And I just love the way he attacks the football.
Yeah, and it's entirely possible. And having Marlon Humphrey across from him,
it's huge.
Yes, of course. We'll get to Marlon Humphrey in a minute. But first, number 6, Steph Gilmore, a drop in play in 2020 for Gilmore, and now he's got the contract thing looming with the Patriots. But in 2019, he was the defensive player of the year as a cornerback. So there was naturally going to be a little regression.
It was a big time drop, but it was more about injuries. He only played in 11 ball games, and some of the games he played in, he wasn't himself. But he's still a top-tier cornerback, right? He's still a proven number one. He's a guy that can take your best wide receiver and efface them out of the ball game. So because of what he's done, especially like you said in that Defensive Player of the Year a season that he had was huge, and he still has that same skill set, but we just didn't see it like we thought we would because he was dealing with so many different injuries and missing ball games. But he's, I don't think there will be one analyst, one expert, one fan, if you had to rank your top 10 cornerbacks, that would be bold enough to leave Stephon Gilmore off.
Oh, you would hope not. That would be wild. And again, he's in a contract year. He's a little bit older. We don't know that the Patriots are going to give him a big extension, but it would be pretty surprising if the Pats just moved on from him or traded him. I mean, don't you think this is a situation where Belichick figures out a way to get him, get him some cash, make him happy, get him into training camp?
Yeah,
the Patriots want to win this year, and Stephon Gilmore helps them win if he's healthy and happy.
Yeah, you move some money up, you move some money around to increase his salary for this season. And then you worry about everything after this season. But if you don't have Stephon Gilmore in your secondary, especially some of the pieces they lost, some of the new pieces they've added, your defense won't be as good.
Yeah, we'll take a huge step back. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, BMAC's top 5 cornerbacks in the NFL. Marlon Humphrey, we mentioned, is when we're talking about Marcus Peters. He checks in at number 5 for you, man. The Ravens have just drafted some studs recently, and Humphrey certainly not an exception. Is it he and Peters? You mentioned, I know you said Peters playing more disciplined. I think you're right, but Humphrey's a nice yin and yang with Peters' aggressive style, right?
No question, no question. The thing I love about Peters and Humphrey, they can coexist in the same secondary. The thing that I love about Marlon is that he's so versatile. You know, he can play outside, he can move in inside, and won't give any drop off in production. And he tackles well. I mean, he's a ball searching defender. Anytime he's tackling you, he's trying to search for the football. He has a little bit of that Charles Peanut Tillman punch into his game. He has a little bit of that Charles Woodson punch in his game. And anytime he tackles wide receivers, it's not about just bringing them down. It's about trying to create a turnover. He's a do-it-all type of corner. He's one of the more balanced corners in the National Football League. And because of that and how consistent he's been, he has to be in your top 5. How
about the 2017 draft class producing Tre'Davious White, Marlon Humphrey, and Marshawn Lattimore? Wow. And Adoree Jackson, that's a pretty stout first round in terms of cornerbacks coming out.
No question.
Kevin King as well, although the Packers fans might not be as enthralled about that. Humphrey and Peters. Is that the best tandem in the NFL, or would you give the nod to? I guess you go maybe. You could. I mean, you got.
Okay. So look. So I'll say this. I would give the nod to Baltimore because both guys would easily be in everyone's top 7, top 8.
Yeah.
When you look at the top corners of the National Football League. Close number 1, I would have the Rams.
With Ramsey and Williams. The Dolphins have to be there with Howard.
The Dolphins would be a close one as well. Jones and Howard. Anybody else that I'm
trying to think if there's another.
I can tell you who. I mean, if they play some. Hey, look here. If they play some pretty good football this year, freaking the Broncos. You got Kyle Fuller.
Yeah.
You got Surtain. You got Ronald Darby. Callahan, Brian Callahan. You got 4
Kyle
guys.
Fuller.
Kyle Fuller, Pat Surtain Jr., Darby, Brian Callahan. They got some ballers at the cornerback position for them as well. But
that's good. In terms of like 1 to 5. That's
that's probably they're the deepest, but the best duo. I'll go Baltimore, followed by Miami, then the Rams.
I think that's probably correct. Am I missing something? I'm just trying to make sure we don't leave anybody off. No, I think that's the right answer. Good call. Okay. Speaking, I was just double checking to make sure Buffalo wasn't squatting on somebody we were forgetting about, along with Tre'Davious White, who checks in as your number 4 cornerback. The only knock on Tre'Davious White, is that he shouldn't have signed that contract as early as he did, because then Marlon Humphrey signed a much, much bigger one after he signed his. And he was probably like, oh no, what have I done? I mean, Humphrey signed, so Trey White signed a almost $69 million deal, 17.25 per year. And then Marlon Humphrey, again, same draft class, same age, pretty identical production, immediately signs a $97.5 million contract.
Well, let me ask you this question.
That would hurt.
Let's say, hypothetically speaking, I give you a lottery ticket worth $60 million. Mm-hmm. Would you wait a full year to cash that lottery ticket in?
No, I would cash that lottery ticket in right away.
Trey White had to go get it. He couldn't say, yo, I want to wait and let someone else sign so I can trump their deal. They offered him more than serviceable money, more than fair money. He had to go get it.
They offered him generationally life-changing money.
A lottery ticket.
Yeah. Like, you're great. I mean, in theory, a $70 million contract should ensure, along with your former, you had a first round contract too, which is nothing to shake your head at, right? Like 20 million, 15, 20 million. In theory, your grandkids shouldn't have to worry about working.
Yeah. And you got to look at it like this. Anytime you sign these mega deals, you may be the highest paid player at your position, maybe for 1 year, if that.
Yeah. Right. That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And he did top everybody else. That we talked about the Byron Jones and Xavier Howard. Oh, anyway, let's talk Trey White's. Trey White's a stud, man. He's a stud.
I love his game. He plays off technique well. He plays bump and run well. He continues to develop to be one of the consistent defenders in the National Football League. I really feel like this Buffalo Bills defense this year would be a real good unit. We didn't really see the stout defensive dominating play we thought we would see throughout the entire season, because there were so many injuries to guys on every level of the defense. But Trey White, man, he has a chance to have like an all-pro type year this season.
And the thing with Buffalo that I thought was really smart about their offseason was they went and added in the draft, first round Gregory Rousseau and second round Boogie Basham. Carlos is going by Boogie. That's how he wants to go by.
Yeah, we're gonna call him Boogie.
That's hey, you want to be called Boogie? We'll call you Boogie. Those are two bigger defensive linemen, and that was really the only weak spot for them. Was their defensive line was just a little bit smaller, and they didn't quite have the pass rush that I think they needed to. But now you look at it's a complete unit. They brought Matt Milano back. There's no reason this Bills defense couldn't be top 5 in the league again. I
agree. If they stay healthy with the additions you mentioned, I think they would be better in rushing the passer, getting sacks. Leslie Frazier has been doing a real good job there in Buffalo defensively. So I'm excited about this group coming up.
Yeah, and we always do the top 10 the breakout defenses on the show. I think we've done the last 2 years. And Buffalo would be a perfect, because I think they finished outside the top 5. So he was like, this is the team where the surprise team that could be number 1. Maybe surprise. I don't know.
You gotta bring me back on when we do the breakout defenses. Because remember a few years I gave you that Chicago, I gave you that Bears insight, and what was that, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago? They had that unbelievable defense.
They went from like 15 or 20 to number 1 or something crazy like that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I got something in store for you already, though.
I like it. Number 3 cornerback. You can actually argue this is where the top 5 is kind of snug, but I think the top 3 is real snug. A lot of people might have Jair Alexander, who you have at 3, is number 1.
Listen, man, I love Jair's games. Coming out of Louisville, I love this game coming out of Louisville. Talented player. He plays bigger than his measurables, plays with a big heart. He tackles well. He does everything you want a corner to do. You know what I mean? And it was hard having him number 3, but if you had him number 2 or 1, I'm okay with it. That's how good he is. But me, for my list, I have Jair number 3. Not because he's not good enough to be higher, but because the other 2 guys, just in my opinion, played better football. That's it.
Nothing wrong with it.
And like I said, there's no wrong answer when you look at my top 3. I think if you want to move a guy around here or there, I'm okay with that. But Jair, yeah, he's a top tier player. And you talk about, Trey White getting that huge deal and Marlon Humphrey got that huge deal. The deal that Jair is trying to get is that Jalen Ramsey deal. You know what I mean? Getting around. I think Jalen gets around 19, 20 million per year, if I'm not mistaken. Jair Alexander is the next up. He's the next big time player at the cornerback position that's going to get paid nicely.
Jair is still on his rookie deal, which was $12 million total. He's getting a $100 million deal.
Yes.
He's the rare guy, I think, who could say, I want more than Jaylen Ramsey. I want to be a $20 million player. And I don't know that the Packers will have much of a leg to stand on. Here's a good stat for you, courtesy of Pro Football Focus. In 2020, including Green Bay's 2 postseason games, so we're talking a total of 17 games for Jair Alexander.
You said two. So
no, but he only played 15 last year.
Okay, gotcha.
Plus the 2 playoff games. He allowed 353 receiving yards in coverage over 17 games. That is ridiculous. And he played 600 coverage snaps. That's an insane
consistency.
Yeah, exactly. Consistency, a breakout season for him where he elevated himself into a top tier cornerback and reflected in the rankings. Number 2, the guy. This is we talked about the contract situation. This is one where, look, you sign a contract, as you point out, you might be the highest paid player. Somebody's going to get paid more than you. And Xavier Howard now is miffed with the Dolphins after signing his new deal kicked in last year, but
2019.
He signed
that extension in 2019.
It kicked in 2020.
Yeah, he's not even the highest paid corner on his team, though.
Well, that's what he's mad about, I think. He's like, look, you got to pay me more than Byron Jones. I'm sorry. And the Dolphins,
I mean, my thing is this. When the Dolphins decided to give Byron Jones the money they gave him, you knew either Xavier Howard going to be, if he would feel some type of way, especially if he outperforms Byron Jones, or he'd be quiet if he didn't, because he won't have anything to stand on. Man, Xavier Howard is my number 2 corner in the National Football League. He had 10 interceptions. Need I say more? 10 interceptions. Man played a full season. He went 6 games without getting an interception. He had a stretch where he had 4 straight ball games with at least 1 interception. Then he had another stretch, 5 games where he got at least 1 interception. This man balled out. 10 interceptions, 20 PBUs, and 1 game that I really, really loved from Xavier Howard when they played Kansas City and he was called to follow Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill did have a touchdown, but in 7 targets, he only caught 3. He had 78, 79 yards. But if you're able to shadow the most electrifying man in football and only give up 3 receptions playing against Money Pat Mahomes, you did your job. And he did his job, and he had an unbelievable, I think it was a one-handed interception in that ball game. So what Xavier Howard was able to do, double-digit picks, I mean, he touched the football 30 times. When you talk about passes, 30 times he touched the football.
Led the league in PBUs and interceptions. That is a beastie season. And you're right. I mean, like the Dolphins were in that game against the Chiefs.
Yes,
they were winning 10-0 early on. They resorted to using Tyreek Hill on jet sweeps. They had like
they were trying to move him around.
Yeah, they were down 10-0. He had that jet sweep rushing touchdown. And so then all of a sudden, you're really throwing Xavier Howard in to complete the touchdown pass. But yeah, he was fantastic. And do you think they pay him, or I mean, what is the solution here if you're the Dolphins? Because I'm pretty sure they have enough cash where they could make it happen.
That's the thing. I don't know because you're paying Byron Jones like almost $18 million per year, right, Will?
Yeah.
So you would have to eclipse that deal.
Now Byron's at 16.5 and Xavier Howard's at 15.
15. So Byron Jones what?
Byron Jones at 16.5.
16.5. Okay, I'm sorry. So,
no, sorry.
Yeah, and Xavier Howard is at 15. So you got to find a way to make him give him a higher salary than Byron Jones because he's a better player.
Yeah,
it's plain simple. There's no other reason to have a throw out. He is a better cornerback.
If you and I were on the same team and both playing cornerback, same flag football team, and you're making $15 a game and I'm making $20 a game.
Now, what are we doing?
Yeah, no, you're going to you're gonna be like, listen, guys.
What are we doing?
Brinson's fine. I mean, like, I'm not. You're going to need 25 at bare minimum, probably more like 40.
And also too, Will, you got to factor in. Remember, last year in the draft, they used a first rounder on a corner as well.
Oh, that's right.
Noah
Igbenogany
from Auburn. Yes,
that's right. They used one.
They brought in this year McCourty from the Patriots.
Yep.
Hey, if I'm Miami, if you can't pay the man or give him a bump in his salary, why don't you trade him to New England and you guys get Stephon Gilmore in return?
Oh, there you go. Then you got to pay Steph Gilmore, of course, too.
I mean, I think Steph would take the 15 for this year and compared to the 7 that he's supposed to get, right?
Yeah.
You double his money.
And again, the tough part for Xavier Howard, he signed that contract extension before his 5th-year option season. So then he played his 5th-year option.
Well, he didn't have a 5th year because he was second rounder.
Oh, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, but when he signed his contract, he had 1 more year left on his rookie deal.
Yeah.
And they didn't replace it. And so he played that last year of his rookie deal, and then the contract kicked in. Now, he got the signing bonus, of course.
Now, but get this, though, Will. He was kind of between a rock and a hard place because he had an injury. You know what I mean? That he sustained right before they offered that contract. So when you had that type of injury, I think it was to his knee or something like that, and it wasn't bad money. It's just the timing of the deal. Right,
exactly. And it just a couple more deals kicked in. Exactly. It's not bad money. Oh, that's right, because he only played 5 games in 2019.
Yep.
After a really good 2018 season.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're him, you're thinking, man, like I want to.
You got to go get it. You got to say yes to the deal.
Again, as you point out, you don't want to squat on a lottery ticket for a year. You want get your money.
I don't know one person that would say yes. I'll sit on this lottery ticket for a full year. Who's doing that?
I mean, it's the same problem as like Danielle Hunter. It's like they trying to get paid now because you got to get, if you're an NFL player, you got to get paid when you can get paid.
No doubt.
Finally, the number 1 cornerback on your list. I don't think a surprise for anybody.
Number 1 in your heart, number 5 in your playbook.
That's right. Oh, that's right. He switched numbers.
Jalen Ramsey, the ultimate alpha dog at the cornerback position. Like, I can highlight how well he covers wide receivers, how well he plays the football. But first thing I want to highlight about Jalen Ramsey and why he is number 1 on my list outside of those coverage aspects. He tackles. The best tackling cornerback I've seen in a long, long time. He is so consistent in his tackling. Reminds me a lot of Antoine Winfield, but a different tackling style. He tackles running backs like they're wide receivers. He attacks wide receivers to inflict pain on them. The game is personal. Every play is personal for Jalen, and I love the way he plays because you feel the intensity coming from him. And then when it comes to playing against opposing, team's best threat, he takes that. He loves that. He loves that challenge. So Jalen Ramsey, I think he might not have the numbers like an Xavier Howard, or JC Jackson, some of these other guys that I highlighted. But you talk about you need 1 corner and you're playing against the who's of who, the DK Metcalfs of the world, the DeAndre Hopkins of the world, the Stephon Diggs of the world, Devontae Adams, whoever. And you can pick any corner for that 1 game. I think the consensus would pick Jalen.
I agree completely. He had a monster season last year. The one thing about Ramsey is that even though he does shadow these number 1 receivers, is he's not going to see probably as many throws. There's a lot of times where teams avoid it, right? I mean, where teams don't want to throw his direction.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes he gets targeted, sometimes he don't. But the thing I love about the way he plays, he makes everybody better. He's the second best player on their defense. And that's no knock to him, but the first player is Aaron Donald.
That's right. That's right.
But think about their defense from a year ago. They were a top-tier unit, right? You didn't worry about the run because you had Aaron Donald. You didn't worry about the pass because you had Jalen. And everything else just kind of just got in line. You know what I mean? And so that top-tier defense, when you look at top-tier defense, you usually got at least 1 top-tier guy. They got 2.
And they had to let 2 guys in Troy Hill and John Johnson go basically because they have these elite level, Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald guys. You have to pay them. You can absolutely.
Losing JJ is a huge loss though. John Johnson. Oh
yeah.
Wow. He can go. He can ball.
They've got their defense is pretty sick though. And it starts with Jalen Ramsey, who easy number 1 cornerback going in. And you know what? It's he is not going to play. Obviously, Brandon Staley's gone. It had a great season his first year with Brandon Staley. But correct me if did you work with Raheem Morris? Was Raheem Morris in Pittsburgh when you were there?
You know what? Funny story with Raheem. Raheem was a part of Tampa Bay when I played in the Senior Bowl. He was a part of the staff. Okay. Mike Tomlin was a DB coach. He was the assistant DB coach. He was like the corners guy, something like that.
That's the.
He was a card holder.
I knew he and Tomlin were really I knew he and Tomlin were married at the hip, but I couldn't remember if it was in Pittsburgh or somewhere else.
It was Tampa.
Okay. And so but I mean, Raheem Morris, a heck of a defensive coordinator, and a smart guy who will know how to utilize Jalen Ramsey in Los Angeles. So Jaylen Ramsey probably gonna be fine in 2021.
No question.
All right, B-Mac. Awesome stuff as always. Make sure and go check out the All Things Covered podcast with Pat P and B-Mac. It is excellent stuff as always. Casual but deep dive conversation. James Brown, Xavier McKinney, amongst other big names. Always a pleasure, man. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having me, Will. Hope you enjoyed my top 10.
I did. It was fantastic. See you, B-Mac.
Yes, sir.